All right. Well, welcome back to Blunt Force Business. I am Brian LaFauci.
And I'm Patrick Marino.
Right. Today, Patrick, what are we talking to them about?
Today we're going to talk about SEO.
Okay.
So that's the letter S, the letter E, the letter O, SEO.
Search engine optimization.
You got it.
I'm so smart. That's it. My knowledge end right there. This will be the Patrick Marino show from South Coast Inbound, who does all your marketing needs, because I don't know shit after that what I just said. So
well, I mean, it's a good conversation, and this is going to be kind of like an introduction, right? Because this could be a very long.
This will be intro to SEO.
This could be a very long conversation. But I think that the reason it's important to have is because if you're a business owner or you're even just working in a business, a lot of times you're trying to figure out, how do I get more people?
Yep.
And then you do some research, and then you find this topic, SEO, and you're like, all right, well, I want to do SEO, right? How do I do SEO? Like that's
everybody knows the word.
Yeah, everybody's like, oh, I want to do SEO, and they kind of understand it just means doing better on Google.
Yep.
But they don't understand what it takes. They don't understand how it works. You know, and you can figure some of this stuff out. It's all on the internet. You can Google it, but
you can Google how to Google.
Yeah, exactly.
That's fantastic.
But in business, as we talk about all the time, and my job and your job as mostly consultants, is what is the right area for somebody to focus on?
Yeah.
Right. If you don't have unlimited time or resources.
Yep.
So how you market is going to be different based on the product that you're selling, based on who you are, based on whether you're virtual or whether you have an actual brick and mortar shop that you sell things out of. There's all these different factors are going to how expensive your product is, what the competition is. I mean, all those things are all factors in what you're going to do. And so you're going to have a mix of things. You're going to pay for advertising. You're going to be on TV. And sometimes you're going to work on your Google search, right? And you're going to work to see, can I get the most out of Google search? And that's really what SEO is. SEO is, in a nutshell, it's getting the most out of an internet search.
So when you say Google,
yeah,
are you using that term the way you use Kleenex? Like Google is a brand, like right. Kleenex is a brand, but we kind of assign it to all of the search engines.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a couple ways of looking at it. One is yes, because Google is the number one player by far. So yeah, you are pretty much talking about Google.
Okay.
You're not really. So like, what are the other competitors? Do you even know like what other search?
Yeah, I mean, there's Safari, right?
Well, Safari's a browser. It's not a search engine.
It's not.
No.
Okay. So see, I did not know. I would say Yahoo. Is Yahoo one?
I think still does
Bing?
search.
Bing,
yep, for sure. Firefox is a browser.
Okay. Yeah, so I guess you're right.
So really you're talking about like when we
Why don't you tell me?
Well, back in the 90s,
yep,
when I first discovered the internet, do you remember Excite?
Not at all.
Do you remember Lycos?
Nope.
Ask Jeeves?
Yes.
Okay, so there was like a billion of these search
engines. I remember Ask Jeeves.
Yeah. So the real history is, okay, so you put a search engine is something where you put a question or I want to find out about something into the browser.
Yep.
And it shoots out all these results, right? And that's what a search engine does. It's going to figure out what are the things on the internet that can help this person find out what they're trying to figure out.
Okay.
Right? And so back in the day, you had like a bunch of them, right? You had Excite, you had Lycos, and a ton of them. Yahoo was a big player.
Right.
And then you had Google, right? And so Google's killer function and their killer decision and why Google became number one versus where everyone else was is that you have to remember is that these are just computers trying to figure out what you mean, right? So if you're searching for the best coffee or whatever, right? How to make coffee. We talked about espresso earlier, right?
Yeah.
How to make a good espresso, right? In the old days, because it was just computers starting out, what they would do is they would just look for words. Right, so they'd look for, like a search engine would look for all the websites in the world and figure out which websites talked about espresso. And it would show you the ones that talked about it the most.
Gotcha.
So you can see why that might be a problem is because now if I wanted my website
just say the word
to come up first, I would say espresso like everywhere. In fact, what some web page, I don't really remember this, you probably don't because it seems like you're looking at me crazy, but like back in the day, you'd have like a website and then at the bottom of the page, just be words.
I do remember seeing that.
There's be a ton of words, right?
Yes.
They're just trying to get the search engine attention. And then when the search engines were like, well, we really don't want that. That looks a little spammy.
Yep.
Then they would do the words in like the same background as the web page, so you couldn't see them. They were hidden, so they were still there, but you can see it. You see the game, so you're not getting, if you're using a search engine and you'd get stuff that didn't answer your questions.
Gotcha.
It wouldn't be good stuff.
Gotcha.
What Google figured out, and the genius of Google was, they decided your website had the right information that this person is looking for, if other websites also thought that was the right information.
Okay.
And those are links. So it'd be like, if you write an article about fatherhood,
Yes.
right? Think about a topic, right? About being a good father or whatever, like how to schedule more time with your child, right?
Yep.
If you wrote that article and I was like, I'm frustrated about this as a dad, I want to look for it, right? And I'm going to find all these articles. If a lot of people, like, let's say I had a separate news website and I was trying to figure this out, and I saw your article, I'd probably link to that from my website. But here's a really good article,
Right.
by Brian LaFauci. I'd link to it, right? And then other websites would link to it too.
Yeah.
I'd be like, this is a really good article. What Google figured out was, well, if a bunch of websites are linking to that, then that's probably really, really good. So the way it determined which thing to serve you when you did a search,
Right.
was based on how many links it had. It'd be like, okay, like if your website has a bunch of links, your website, like if all these websites are linking to you, you're the authority. So this must be the most important article on the web. So that's going to be the first thing we show.
Does it incorporate social media links as well?
Well, so, we get down
The different rabbit
we're
hole?
down the rabbit hole.
Sorry.
We're
I'll
in
close the
introduction,
rabbit hole
right?
door.
Exactly. This is an introduction, right?
All right, I get it. Websites, link to websites, which
that's
made
how
Google
figured it out.
effective at really,
And so,
because they are really good.
right.
I mean, you put something into Google, and it is amazing the quality of information you get back.
Well, now we're 30 years down the road,
Yeah.
right? And so things have changed dramatically. But essentially, the reason why you don't use Excite anymore, and the reason why you don't use, most people
they
don't
beat
use
'em to that
Yahoo,
punch.
is because Google is so much better than everybody else. If you did a search on Google, you were more likely to get a good answer than you were on any of the other
Right.
websites. Now,
Right.
that's not the only thing that determines it anymore. Now it's more. Now there's a lot more that goes into a search.
But from a standpoint of explaining how we got here, that was helpful.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
sure it was helpful to our audience
Right,
too.
yeah.
To be like, how did we get here? So, all right, now we know how we're here.
Yeah.
Now we know what we're talking about today,
Right.
and what our listeners are looking for is, okay, great, I get it. Now for me, as the company, I want to be the one that Google. So where do I start? And I think we can kind of kick into blunt force fact number 1 with where to start.
Well, I want to start with blunt force fact number 1. I want to just quickly talk one more thing.
Oh, all right.
One
Okay.
more thing.
Yeah, I appreciate
So
it.
one extra thing, right? So now just do a search, and you should just practice this, right? If you want to get good at this, do a
Yeah.
search for something related to your business, right? And see what comes up.
Okay.
Okay. And we're going to talk about Google, even though it's more complicated than that, especially more and more complicated, that more search engines are doing better. But we're still primarily Google, right? If you do a Google search, the first couple things that come up are usually ads, right? So those are going to be paid
And
ads.
they say ad.
They do say ad, but the average person is still most likely to click the top thing, no matter whether they know it's an ad or not.
Oh, I do the opposite. I do scroll past the ad.
Right. So some people scroll past, but most people don't.
Okay.
Most people are going to click on the top couple of things.
Yep.
Right. But you have the ads.
Yep.
And then if location is a factor, so in other words, like if I'm looking for a restaurant,
Near me or if it has your location
or even
on,
I'm just looking for a restaurant, it's not
Right.
going to assume I'm looking for one halfway across the country. I want to eat some Mexican food.
Good point.
It's not going to be like, oh, here, go to Mexico.
Yeah.
Here's the best one in the world.
Not a bad
No,
idea.
it's going to be like, here's the one that's down the road from you. Right. So it brings up the little map pack.
Yep.
Right. We call
Yep.
that the map pack. And it's like in the map pack, there are like 3 locations usually. And then if you click on the map, you can find more locations.
Yep.
But it's usually 3. And then underneath that would be probably what we would call like the organic links. Right. So these would be the things that Google thinks is the best without paying for it. Right. So the top is you're paying for it. Next is the map. And then underneath that is sort of what Google thinks is the most important, or the best answer to your question, or the most useful website for you to go to.
Okay.
For whatever that is. So, and when we do search engine optimization, we're trying to understand that whole thing because we want to make the best of that search. So like in some cases, we might have to pay.
Right. Yeah.
In some cases, we want to be the closest one. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like, and so like determining how to, it's not so like SEO is generally speaking, people are talking about organic, which means we're not paying for it. It means we're getting it because our website is doing what it's supposed to do.
Doing the right thing.
Right. Exactly. Our business is the right business for this search.
Right.
Right. So that means we didn't pay Google for that. Google just decided we were the best business. And that's generally speaking what people, when they say SEO, they're mostly talking about organic, non-paid.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that a true SEO strategy is looking at the whole picture and saying, like, there's going to be some things if we want to get found, we're better off paying for it. You know what I mean? And that's a complicated thing as well. So now we can get into the blunt force facts. But like I think that's what SEO is basically. How do you take advantage of a Google search? I mean, how do you take advantage of that? So,
Okay. Yeah. So how do we take advantage of that?
So blunt force fact number one is words matter.
Okay.
Right? So even though we talked about the fact that people were throwing around keywords back in the past, we talked about how important linking is. It's kind of like it's always a paradigm, right? It's always like a balance. So it used to be like links were everything, but now Google's getting back to the point where like, you know, everything's like natural language processing. So it's looking at your search and it's understanding what you mean by that. So now it's better able to read things out on the internet and figure out exactly what you are looking for.
So here's what I'm hearing is, you know, this is your lane way more than is my lane. I'm hearing like sentence structure and things like that. It can read through, as opposed to, and this is kind of like
for sure.
Yeah. So as opposed to just keywords, it's context. Mm-hmm. It can read through.
Context is wicked important now too, but words still matter.
That's a New England statement.
The example
being wicked important.
Yeah, the example we brought up when we were talking before was like, let's say Brian LaFauci is a plumber, right? And he's got wicked awesome plumbing company.
Do have wicked awesome plumbing.
Wicked awesome plumbing. Located here in Seekonk, Massachusetts. So he's got that business. Now another company is just called Drip Drip, right? They figured it was a clever word, right? We're doing plumbing, right?
That is pretty clever. Did you just come up with that?
I just came up with it right now.
Pretty
right?
good.
So they're called Drip Drip.
Yeah.
So the challenge for Google is figuring out what Drip Drip is. It's still just a computer, right? It doesn't. It's not doing all this trying to figure out what that business is. So Brian's wicked awesome plumbing company is probably going to rank higher for a plumber search than Drip Drip because Brian's company has plumbing in the name. And then if Brian also on his website talks about plumbing frequently, and I don't, I'm just showing pictures of before and afters or whatever, like then your website's going to come up higher. Google's going to figure out that you're a plumbing company. So words are extremely important, right, in the SEO. So like you have to make sure that you explicitly talk about what it is that you want to come up for in a search, right? So again, if you're a plumbing company, you know people are looking for plumbers near you. If you're a Mexican restaurant near me, right? And the more explicit you are, and sometimes, although the computers are getting better at reading language, you still sometimes see like, you know, overly wordy things. Like for example, like if I want a business to show up, I will say, you know, plumber in Seekonk frequently, because I know that will be a signal to Google that we are located in Seekonk.
Yeah.
And that this is a plumber.
Yep.
Right. So if you don't do those things, it's going to be a struggle to rank. So words are extremely important.
Okay. Excellent. You know, and included in that, words, you know, what I wonder is if you want to stand out in a certain demographic, you know, writing about that is important. I know myself, I frequently on my website will talk about veteran-owned business because I think people will search for that.
Yeah,
right? So,
absolutely.
So when I do a little blurb about, you know, XXX is a veteran-owned company, blah, 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 I think, you know, with the mindset you're giving me and that will help to, you know, do that.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So that's blunt force fact number one is words matter, and they still matter, and they will continue to matter, because like ultimately, if you want to figure out what something is, if it says that's what it is, then it's going to help me understand that that's what it is. I'm looking for computers. I'm looking for that word computer. You know what I mean? It's just natural, right?
Awesome.
So that's number one, words that matter. Blunt force fact number two is play the long game. You know what that means?
Yeah, that's like golf. I'm really good at playing the long game. play the long game all the time.
Brian is not.
Is
good at
100
golf.
yards the long game? Because
Brian and I are
like
both not very good at golf.
We're average.
I am not average, so maybe Brian's better than me now.
I don't think
But
so.
in any event, so I mean, a couple things by play the long game. So here's one really good reason why you have to play the long game, and this can be frustrating for a business who's like, we're just getting started. We want to do SEO. Well, SEO doesn't work like a light switch.
Right.
If you get everything right, you have the right website, you even get some people to write about your website and point to it with links.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not a light switch. It takes time, because what happens is Google's got these little robots crawling all over the internet, and it's constantly creating a map of the internet, constantly, like all day, every day.
Yeah.
But that takes time. Like, and there's always new websites. So like all these little robots are crawling all this stuff. So Google doesn't instantaneously say things change. It's not instant, right? It will update over time. So over the course of time, it's going to figure out, okay, well, this is the article Brian just wrote about his plumbing business, right? This, he unclogs toilets, right? And so like people who are looking for that, right? But it's going to take a little while for that article on your website to start showing up in the search. It's not instantaneously. Sometimes it can take up to 6 months, sometimes even a little bit longer. And it's all based on not only your article, but also the competition. So this is all relative. So like the more plumbers there are in the area, the more time it's going to take for your work that you did to work.
I think, to this point, it's really important for our listeners to kind of think about, this is why when we give advice to companies about creating a website and then just leaving it, you go, oh yeah, I got my website, it's up and running, and then you don't touch it, that's a problem. Right. And this is why blog, you'll hear people in the marketing world are always going to push you to, hey, why don't we do a blog or something like that, right? And all of that is to have this to feed the algorithm. Right. Because if you're blogging and you're doing things like that, then you are consciously thinking, you're not going to blog about something not related to your business, I wouldn't imagine, right? So that, maybe on a weekly basis, you're putting up word content and things that now those little robots on Google can grab. It reaffirms what it already had as its belief of who you are, and you're constantly getting it to come to you with, there's something new, there's something new, there's something new. And it has more opportunity to kind of retie that into, oh, this is definitely the person to go to. The other piece about blogs is when you think about getting people to go to and like and link to your site, new content is much more likely to be linked to than something that's just been sitting there stagnant. No one's just going to say, let me just go.
Well, that's not necessarily true.
Well, all right.
Like if you wrote something really, really good and people are constantly discovering it, and then you create something new that's not as good as the old thing, they're still going to.
I phrased that wrong. You're 100% right. I did phrase that wrong. Let me rephrase that by saying that new content will constantly give the audience a reason. Right. So they can always go to that old thing that was really well published and got a lot of traction and things like that. But it'll constantly give people a reason to re-engage.
Well, I think that when we get to the blunt force fact number 3, what you're talking about might make more sense to discuss.
Okay, awesome.
But putting that aside, if you are creating fresh content, don't expect it to rank right away. Right. It takes time. Yeah. Okay, if that's your goal with the content, we can talk a little bit about that in blunt force fact number 3. But if your goal is for Google to find something from your article or whatever you're writing about, don't expect it to work right away. It takes time most of the time. Yes. And this is not like a hard and fast thing, unfortunately. And this is where like people will go to a marketing person, but how long is the marketing person? Like, 6 months, 3 months, 2 weeks. Right. I don't know. It's all relative. Yeah. It's relative to the competition for the search. It's all a game. So in any event, so like that's one reason to play the long game. The other reason to play the long game is because your website's existence and your business's existence matters to Google. So like if you have a brand new domain, then that domain has to earn a little bit of reputation, and that takes time.
It's like a good wine.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's got a season.
It does. Like if you look, most people's websites just over the course of time accumulate more traffic because there's other, if it's businesses, then there's like all these business directories that automatically add your business to the site without you even paying attention to it, right? And so like if you Google your business, you put into a search engine, you'll probably find like all these directories that have a reference to your business. And those are all like, a lot of those are done by artificial intelligence or whatever. But like, all those links matter, especially if those websites end up being good websites, then those links matter and they raise the profile of your website. So over the time, your website traffic organically should improve. You should do better and better and better and better.
Okay.
But it does take time, right? This is a long game. SEO is a long game. It's not a short game.
Love it. I like to play a long game with my whiskey and scotch purchases. 20 years, and I didn't even have to wait. Like, I could go and purchase. They played the long game for me. I can go and purchase it. And so now I relate to your story.
Awesome.
My whiskey and scotch purchases. 20-year age.
I'm going to move right on to blunt force fact number 3.
Okay, sorry. I thought we were going to spend some time on
blunt force fact number 3 is this game might not be for you.
Me personally? Or
it might not be for you personally, Brian. Okay. Because the question is always like, we always get asked, like, I want to do well in SEO. I'll give you an example. Somebody who wanted to do like a fitness and wellness website.
Roger.
Right? And so this person approached us about fitness and wellness website, and they're like, oh, we want to do SEO. Like, this is going to be freaking hard.
Yeah.
It's going to be really hard. Think about the number of websites that talk about fitness and wellness.
Right.
And then you're going to compete against those websites?
In the open space.
How long have those websites been around?
Right.
Right? So it's like, So it's like, it can be really hard to compete in those spaces. Not impossible. Because you create great content.
Yep.
People link to it.
Yep.
You're going to do well.
Yep.
But most likely you're going to be treading on stuff that other people have already talked about, and they have expertise, and they're going to have done it for a long time.
Yep.
And it's going to take a while to compete against those. And if you have like, if you're in health and wellness, you're also competing against like universities.
Yeah.
Who have massive websites.
Right.
Massive. Their goal is to be number one.
And you're competing against companies like a Peloton and these organizations that I think
companies that have lots of resources.
Yes. Was it you mentioned P90X in a call we were on?
The call the other day.
So these big, they have $1 million marketing budgets, right, built into them,
and they have huge websites with tons of articles, and they all link to each other, and they have relationships with people, and they're, so it's like SEO is a long game, but it also might not be the right thing for your business based on the competitive space. The other reason it might not be the right thing is your particular thing that you're trying to sell might not be something that people search for.
Yeah.
So like if you're selling something that's really, really niche, like I have a client who has a really, really niche product, like, and there is competition for it as well. So it's both like people don't search for it a lot, and there's competition for it. So not only is SEO going to be hard for this person, but what are the results going to be? Like, there aren't a lot of people searching for it.
Right.
So it's like, if there's not a lot of people searching, then there's not a lot of volume. There's not a lot of customers coming just organically. So SEO is not the best. And I always say, like, my advice is always like, always consider SEO in everything you're doing just in case, right? So always make sure that your website is properly constructed so that the search engines can find it. Always make sure you're using keywords. Like, do all those things, but don't expect it to have results. Don't expect the results. You know what I mean? And also don't put all your effort into it if there are better channels.
I think that's fantastic advice for our, and I think some of our clientele choose maybe the social media route or other things like that because of that, right? We
and
talk
that was
more
the
about
advice
that.
I gave to the fitness and wellness was like, this is a social media play. This is not a play for,
right.
And that's where a lot of your blog content comes in. Because if you think about like blog content or just any content for your website, some of it will be designed on a good, well-structured website and business. Some of what you do online will be designed to bring in search traffic.
Yep.
But some of it is just, I'm going to write about something that I think is cool, right? And I'm going to share it on social media.
Yep.
Or I'm going to create a video. I'm going to put it on YouTube.
Yep.
Right. And so like now you promote that video, right? And so like people will see it that way, so like those are sometimes better channels for companies, right? And so like your consulting business, like nobody's going to find your consulting business through a Google search because that's not the way people do consulting.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's more like, how do you find that consultant? Well, I mean, Jim used that consultant and his business is flying, right?
Yeah.
And so like that's how people find that's how people find consultants. And again, like if you're going to be like, I'm looking for a consultant, you're going to find all these like people who've been doing it for a very, very long time.
Yeah, larger
Massive
firms that
are out there, doing international talks, you know what I mean? Like, and all these different things. So, like, again, is that the best channel for your consulting business? SEO. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't, like, make sure that you have everything structured just in case. But it just means that if you were getting going, it'd be social media.
Yep.
Networking, email marketing. I mean, like all those different things that are probably better for that particular niche. Right?
Yeah, that's fantastic.
And because like a lot of because this is the question I get all the time, especially from a new business. Like, we want to do SEO. Maybe this isn't the right game for you.
Right. I think people have been
doing this on social media.
People have been hammered to believe that, well, I got to do it. Right. And I think what you just gave as kind of the template here is, yes, you need to do it, but you need to strongly consider, should I spend money on it first off, right? Or should I just have the key components that, we're talking about here and we'll talk about in future videos of the blunt force fact number 1, my words matter, right? Blunt force fact number 2, I'm going to play the long game with this and just kind of let it grow, like and kind of sit in the cask and turn into a nice,
don't expect
12-year. I'm still going bourbon.
Don't expect the light switch of results.
Yeah,
your whiskey is going to be terrible day 1. It's going to be really good 20 years in.
Right. Yep. It will be good 20 years, and then blunt force factor number 3, that this game might not be for you.
And that's like one of our big things that Brian and I both work on is like what's the right path for you in your business.
Right.
And it's not just money, because you mentioned money. It's also time, resources, expertise, like all those things. You want to focus on what you do well. Yeah. And like, it's good. Like a good business owner understands this stuff.
Yes.
Right? They take the time and they figure out every aspect, every angle.
Yeah.
And then they make an informed decision.
Right.
But
and a lot of this decision process comes from, we do this in another video on identifying your market.
Right.
Because when you really understand your market, that's in the conversation that you had with the health and wellness company, it was, okay, let's look at who your market is, how you're going to get them.
Right.
Right. And when you know your market, you know your competitors. So now it's, who do you want to compete against? Right. Because if we go this road, you're competing against companies that have millions of dollars tied into to throw at advertising. You're going to struggle. Or if we compete in this lane, you're going to have success.
And that's a good, I don't know, I don't want to talk too much longer, but here's one thing that did happen. Here's a real life example. So company I was working with sells a product, and they were putting a lot of money into SEO. They were spending like $5 to $10,000 a month for an agency to work on SEO.
Yep.
And their organic traffic was just kind of okay.
Yep.
And so when I came in to work with them, one thing I noticed was their organic traffic was just okay. Mm-hmm. Their driver of revenue was not related to Google search, right? It was related to these relationships they had. They would buy customers, and then that's how they got customers, and then they would email market to them.
Yep.
And then number 3, the competitive environment. None of the competitors were all spending a ton of money on paid advertising.
Yep.
And this company wasn't spending any. They were spending our money on SEO. And so my point was like, look, you're not really getting anything. You're not getting a return on your spending money on SEO. All of your competitors are in the paid space. They're all spending money for advertising, and we're not spending money for advertising. So like, I'm not saying we need to do that, but is SEO for us? And again, we should be prepared, right? We should do everything right.
Right.
But do we dedicate resources specifically to drawing in a Google search when really our competitors aren't doing that?
Yeah.
That's not how people buy this product.
Yeah.
People buy this product because people are paying for advertising.
Yep.
So it's like, that's really important as well. So it's just a kind of closed loop. So
awesome. Good stuff.
Good.
Blunt force business.
I'm sure there'll be more. If you have questions, please feel free to make a comment or even just reach out to us, because we're always looking for ideas on what to talk about. And this SEO could be like something, it could be like a whole series of things, but this is a quick little introduction, give you some blunt force facts to take away, and get you going on your business day.
I love it. Great stuff. I'm Brian LaFauci.
Patrick Marino.
We'll see you soon.
Thanks for watching.